Well.
It's about that time to break out your tinfoil hat because we are going to be getting into it in this video. I believe today, officially Wednesday, November the 12th, we have some pretty clear-cut evidence that the government is up to some shady stuff. Now I know, before you yell at me and call me a crazy person, at least let me present my evidence to you, and then if you disagree with it at that point, feel free to call me a crazy person, but at least please just hear me out. So in reality, this story started at the beginning of October when the US government officially shut down. And as I'm filming this, it seems as if the government's about to reopen, which is a good thing, but there's something else going on underneath. When the stock market officially closed today, people were seemingly applauding the potential reopening. Dow scores first ever close above 48,000, buoyed by expected end of government shutdown. And it didn't take long for people to say, "What?" Breaking, the White House says October jobs and inflation data may never be released, which is basically getting everyone to say, how bad were those numbers? Now, very quickly, with respect to the overall market, we're not that far from the all-time high, pretty much the same situation in the NASDAQ. We gapped up pretty strong. We got the downside gap fill, technically closed slightly red today. There's an overall upside, downside gap fill, but once again, not that far from the all-time high. Bitcoin is actually showing quite a bit of weakness. We're just above 100,000. And if you're watching that crazy story with Win on Twitter, who's betting against it, 40x leverage, millions of dollars. Right now, he must be feeling pretty good, but if dip buyers step in at 100,000, he could definitely get blown out. So interesting to pay attention to that. And I would say that the daily chart really doesn't paint the picture of what happened today. We opened up strong, we puked, we popped, and right at the start of this afternoon, we started to sell off again. Also, quick side note, the quantum computing sphere is getting absolutely clobbered. You have RGTI Rigetti dropping about 9.9%, qubits dropping 9%. Overall, like I said, quantum computing, it's an absolute bloodbath. And if I'm being honest, this was going to be the subject of today's update video. But when we see shady stuff going on with the government, I think that's a little bit more important to cover. So anyway, back to the overall market. The options market, not happy at all. But once again, I want to bring your attention to about 1:45, really the start of this afternoon, where the market and the options flow took another hit. You can see that in the S&P 500, and you can see it a little bit in the Mag 7. It's a bit more pronounced here in the NASDAQ, where we were flat, took a hit into the afternoon, and it was all because of this. House set to vote to end shutdown despite late controversy. Bill would fund government into January after record length impasse, while provisions on potential $500,000 payouts to senators angers some lawmakers. House to vote on bill to end shutdown around 7 p.m. ET today, Wednesday the 12th. So there's a good chance by the time you're watching this, maybe the vote is going on, maybe it's happening, maybe it's not. But granted, the major takeaway is the fact that there's a very high odds chance that as of tomorrow morning, the government will be opened back up. According to Polymarket, there's about a 94-ish% chance. And then looking at Kohrs, yeah, we're basically coming in at the same odds, around 92% chance that it will be opened up tonight going into tomorrow. So just to be specifically clear, I think that's a good thing. It's understandable why that's good for you, for me, for the economy, for people who rely on the benefits, for the government jobs. That is all good. And if you happen to be a trader in the market like myself, you're probably excited about the fact that we finally have some numbers that we could go off of. What's going on with inflation, jobs, and everything in that particular world, which made the White House press conference this afternoon a little bit questionable. Around 2 p.m., really 1:45, the White House says October jobs and inflation data may never be released. Obviously, you don't have to take my word for it. You can listen to the White House press secretary yourself.
Shutdown could end up decreasing fourth quarter economic growth by 2 whole percentage points. The Democrat shutdown made it extraordinarily difficult for economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
Well, there you have it. The White House says October jobs and inflation reports unlikely to be released. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the government shutdown made it hard to gather the necessary data to compile key reports, and it was basically impaired, and we're unlikely to get those numbers. That is a big deal. October jobs, CPI data unlikely to be released according to the White House, and I just figured because it's such a big deal, we should dive a bit more into it. The Democrats have permanently damaged the federal statistical system with October CPI and jobs report likely never being released. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, aka the BLS, and other key statistical agencies stopped producing and publishing economic data during the government shutdown. While economists say some statistics can be retroactively collected and disseminated, there's a risk that others will be skipped entirely. Economists have flagged the CPI and unemployment rate for October as those most likely at risk for not coming out due to how the data underpinning them are collected. So to put that in layman's terms, all this data we were waiting for, basically the CPI, waiting for the retail sales, waiting for the PPI, waiting for the unemployment numbers, but most likely we're not going to be getting them. So unfortunately, for all of us in this beautiful country, that puts us between a rock and a hard spot. On one side, you have potentially just the fact that our government acts like children and they can never agree on anything. They're perpetually gridlocked and there's basically just no adult in the room. And due to their inability to really function with their job, we're not going to be getting important data. On the other side, and this is where it gets a little bit tinfoil hatty, maybe because we knew this data was a little messed up, maybe because there was election, or maybe there was just another nefarious force acting that really just didn't want the government open for, hey, whatever reason, and it really wasn't just the fact that the left and the right couldn't come to some sort of agreement. So in the best case scenario, they're just incredibly incompetent, and in the worst case scenario, they were actively trying to hide something from all of us, the public. I know, I hear you. I understand what you're thinking. This is a little bit out there, but looking at the evidence, it's a little bit too good to be true. It feels like something smells a little bit fishy here. Unfortunately, it's also one of those situations where we're probably never going to get the real answer and we just have to live with it and deal with it the way that it is. Now, I suppose there's a chance that I just took a one too many crazy pills today. So with that in mind, I would love to get your thoughts. Do you think that this is just the government being incompetent, or do you think that they're up to something shady? I would love to hear from you in a comment below. That's what I have for you today. I appreciate the good vibes. I'll catch you in tomorrow's update video, or if you want to hang out in the live stream where we're all trading together Monday to Friday, 9 to 11, I would love to catch you there. That's what I have for you. Catch you in the next one.